The eve of the wedding, Gu Baichen suddenly and secretly altered our marriage certificate. He replaced the groom's name with that of his young uncle, Gu Huainan. A friend asked in shock, "Are you crazy? What if this backfires? Lin Xinhuan has wasted 7 whole years waiting for you. She's already become an old maid." Gu Baichen smiled nonchalantly. "I lost a bet to Huan. I promised to do one thing she asked, no questions asked. It's just changing a name on a marriage certificate. Anyway, Xinhuan's wedding plans have been ruined so many times. A 10th time won't make a difference." Su Huan was an orphan girl he had brought home. Now, she served as his personal maid. When she finds out it's wrong, she'll surely come to me in a panic, begging to change it back. And what if she actually enters the bridal chamber by mistake? My uncle is impotent and crippled. In the end, Xinhuan will still be mine. Besides, wouldn't that give me more leverage over her? His tone was flippant and indifferent. The group immediately burst into laughter. I stood at the door for a long time, my heart turning cold, piece by piece. Finally, I turned and poured out all the hangover soup in my hands. Afterward, my mother hurriedly came to me with the incorrect marriage certificate in a panic. I only smiled and said it didn't matter. Let's just proceed according to what's written here. This time, I didn't go to him to fix the certificate or discuss the marriage with the Gu family. That day, I happened to run into Gu Baichen as he was about to take Su Huan out for fun. I casually handed him my new wedding invitation, but he tossed it aside without looking. "I'm not reading your apology letter. When you finally give Huan the hairpin she likes, then I'll forgive you." I didn't explain. I just watched him leave with indifference. Later, on the day of my grand wedding, the usually superior and composed Gu Baichen stormed into the prince's manor like a madman. "I am the groom. Clearly, I should have been the groom. Huan, are you sure you won't change the certificate? But that Gu Huainan is a cripple and impotent." My mother's eyes were slightly red. I felt a pang of guilt in my heart. Ever since she knew Gu Baichen had agreed to marry me, my mother had been the happiest person. She knew I had waited for Gu Baichen for 7 years. She watched me go from the prime of my youth to my late 20s, year after year, until I became the laughingstock of the city, the old maid that nobody wanted. On the day the Gu family sent the betrothal gifts, my mother wept with joy all night. Later, she stayed up for 30 nights to embroider the dragon and phoenix wedding dress for me. But now, Gu Baichen, for the sake of a bet with his personal maid, had sent an altered marriage certificate. In this moment, I felt nothing but exhaustion. I looked at the red paper with gold lettering, and said softly, "Anyway, it's still someone from the Gu family." I knew I could no longer afford to be reckless. This was the 10th time Gu Baichen had broken his promise to marry me. The first time, people stood up for me, scolding him for being fickle. The second time, the noble ladies were puzzled, speculating if we had some conflict. But after time and time again, everyone began to think the problem lay with me. They said I was shameless and unwanted, vicious and detestable. That's why my childhood friend, Gu Baichen, refused to marry me. When Gu Baichen first broke his promise, I did think about finding another suitor. But as soon as the matchmaker saw me, they awkwardly pushed my gifts away. "Young Master Gu has said you are his woman. Who would dare compete with him? Besides, with your reputation, miss, I'm afraid you can only ever be a Mrs. Gu." My pale finger rested on the name Gu Huainan. I knew then that I had finally let go of my entanglement with Gu Baichen. I would content myself with being a Mrs. Gu. It was just a different Gu, that's all. When the matriarch of the Gu family heard I was marrying Gu Huainan, she was incredibly surprised. But then she remembered that Gu Huainan was her most beloved youngest son, who had been bedridden with illness for years. She immediately agreed to the marriage. She even added more betrothal gifts for me. "I heard Gu Huainan secretly supplemented these for you," my mother whispered to me. I looked at the countless crates in the courtyard and nodded, satisfied with everything. The wedding preparations were in full swing. Unexpectedly, on this day, an uninvited guest arrived at my door. It was Gu Baichen. He wore dark purple robes embroidered with gold, his ponytail held high by a purple gold crown. He looked dashing and full of spirit. His eyes were filled with triumph and mockery. And following behind him was Su Huan. I knew. He thought I still hadn't discovered the altered marriage certificate. Seeing that I ignored him, he didn't mind. He just picked up a cup I had used and drained the tea in one gulp. "Are all your wedding preparations ready?" Hearing my cold voice, a hint of confusion flashed across his face, but he merely reminded me, "Have you checked everything? The betrothal list, the invitations, and the marriage certificate. After all, it's the biggest event of your life. Don't you want to take it out and look at it again?" I pretended not to notice his hint and simply said, "Everything has been verified. If you have nothing else, please leave early." Gu Baichen looked slightly annoyed, but he pursed his lips and said, "I actually do have one thing to ask of you today. Years ago, I gave you my mother's jade bracelet. That bracelet was meant for my future wife. Since you haven't married into the family yet, shouldn't you return the bracelet to me first?" I froze. I was only 16 when I received that bracelet. The sun was perfect that day. Gu Baichen had come to find me looking all mysterious. The moment we met, he slipped the jade bracelet onto my wrist. The bracelet was icy and snow-white, carved from the finest white jade. It looked incredibly precious. I hurriedly tried to take it off, but he held my wrist firmly. "This is a family heirloom my mother prepared for her future daughter-in-law." As shadows danced around us, His smile was brighter than the sun. Later, I found out that this jade bracelet was a Gu family heirloom passed down for generations on his mother's side. When Madame Gu found out he had stolen it, she gave him a severe beating, but Gu Baichen was defiant, saying he would marry no one but me. It doesn't matter when I give it to her. In the blink of an eye, I had worn that bracelet for 7 years. It, like Gu Baichen, had slowly integrated into my life. Seeing my silence, Gu Baichen thought I was unwilling. Just as he was about to speak, Su Wanwan grabbed his arm and said softly, maybe we should just forget it. Sister Xinwan has worn it for so long, after all. Gu Baichen immediately countered. No matter how long she's worn it, it's still a Gu family possession. I said I'd let you try it on, so I definitely will. So he was asking for it back for Su Wanwan. I felt a moment of realization. I reached out, took off the bracelet, and handed it to him. Gu Baichen was stunned. As if he hadn't expected me to be so straightforward, his expression became somewhat uncertain. I said indifferently, you're right. This belongs to the Gu family. Since I haven't married you, it is indeed inappropriate to wear it. Now Gu Baichen felt a bit awkward. He took the bracelet and muttered, well, on our wedding day, I will personally put it on you again. Upon hearing this, a flash of jealousy appeared in Su Wanwan's eyes. I saw Gu Baichen stuff the bracelet into Su Wanwan's hand and prepare to leave. I called out to him, Gu Baichen, since I've returned the bracelet to you, what about my family's double blessing jade pendant? He paused in his tracks and looked at me in disbelief. You want me to return the token of our love? Xinwan, do you not want to get married anymore? At that moment, I almost wanted to blurt out the question. Who is the one who doesn't want this marriage? But I wanted to preserve my last shred of dignity. I didn't want to be like a resentful woman questioning everything. I simply said coldly, I just think it's inappropriate for you to have it. He gave a cold snort, reached down to pull the pendant from his waist, and tossed it toward me. This pendant is old anyway. It really is time for a change. He took Su Wanwan's hand and turned to leave. I didn't chase after him. I just gently touched the crack on the jade pendant. It was a sword mark. Years ago, after he received this pendant, he cherished it deeply. He always kept it close to his chest. During a battle against bandits, a stray arrow flew straight toward his heart. Everyone thought Gu Baichen would be seriously wounded, or even lose his life, but he only stood dazed for a moment. And from his chest, he slowly pulled out that pendant, still warm from his body. The pendant had blocked the cold arrow, saving his life. Later, he knelt before me and said, Wanwan, you are my lucky star. If not for you, I would have died long ago. I will never fail you in the future. Back then, we were inseparable, but later, even his way of addressing me grew distant. He never called me Wanwan again. It was because Su Wanwan said their names were similar, which made her feel like she was just a redundant substitute. So from then on, Gu Baichen began calling me by my full name. Miss? Xiao Tao's worried voice pulled me back from my memories. I gave her the jade pendant. This pendant is cracked. Take it and dispose of it. But you spent several nights carving this yourself. I just smiled. It's useless now. After that, Gu Baichen never came to see me again. And there were only 4 days left before my wedding with the Gu family's young uncle. On this day, my mother took me to see the matriarch to discuss the wedding. It was also the first time I met Gu Huainan. He sat in a wooden wheelchair, his face bearing an unhealthy pallor. Yet he was exceptionally handsome. The matriarch said, Huainan, the night blooming cereus in the garden is in full bloom. Why don't you take Xinwan for a walk? I softly agreed and stepped forward to push Gu Huainan's wheelchair. He was a witty, humorous, and scholarly man. He could chat with me on any topic. Even regarding classical texts or the most popular cosmetics and styles, he knew a great deal. I was originally quite nervous, but I gradually began to feel more at ease. During our idle chat, I suddenly felt a sharp gaze on me. I turned to look and saw Gu Baichen standing under the corridor at some point. His dark, deep eyes were staring fixedly at me and Gu Huainan, and in his hand, he held a gold-foiled card. I recognized it at a glance. It was the card we had just discussed with the matriarch concerning the details of my wedding with Gu Huainan. Gu Baichen's eyes were inscrutable, showing no emotion, but the tight set of his jaw indicated that he was not in a good mood. Seeing me turn toward him, he walked over slowly. Why are you with my uncle? Before I could explain, Gu Huainan glanced at him and spoke indifferently. What, does my future wife need to report to you? His voice was somewhat cold, nothing like the gentle tone he used with me just now. That one sentence caused Gu Baichen's expression to change slightly. Only now did I belatedly remember that before Gu Huainan was injured, he was also a world-renowned god of war, the pillar of the Gu family. Gu Baichen gripped the card and said, I just didn't want her to trouble you, uncle. Uncle, Xinwan and I have things to discuss. Could you? Gu Huainan's gaze fell on me. I hesitated for a moment, and then nodded. He then pushed his wheelchair to the corridor himself. The distance was just right. He couldn't hear our conversation, yet he could see everything in the garden clearly. Gu Baichen frowned at this, looking displeased, but he didn't dare lash out. He just focused his gaze on me. He immediately began to interrogate me. Lin Xinwan, why did you sell our love token pendant? That day, I had Xiao Tao take the pendant to any shop and sell it cheaply. I never thought it would somehow find its way back to Gu Baichen. The pendant was broken, so naturally it had to be disposed of. I offered a neutral explanation. Fine, you must give me a better one in the future. But I was just speaking casually that day. I can't believe you actually sold it. You're way too obedient to me. If I said I wanted Wanwan to be my wife, and you could only be a concubine, would you actually rush to help me bring her into the household? I looked at him in surprise. It was clearly because I didn't want the pendant anymore, yet he thought it was because of his offhand remark that I had sold it. He even spoke such nonsense. In this moment, I almost laughed at his sheer arrogance. But in the end, I didn't want to cause trouble. I just handed him my wedding invitation. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Since it was proper etiquette, I had to provide a wedding invitation to him as well. But before I could finish my sentence, Gu Baichen took the invitation. His attitude was casual. I heard the date is set for 4 days from now. I'm taking Wanwan hunting in the suburbs tomorrow. I don't know if I can make it back. Why don't you tell grandmother to push the date back to 5 days from now? I looked at him in shock, thinking Gu Baichen was acting bizarrely today. He had deliberately sabotaged the marriage certificate. Afterward, neither he nor I had mentioned it. Naturally, my wedding was proceeding according to the official certificate. The person I was marrying was Gu Huainan. But he seemed to have completely forgotten about that. He acted as if I would marry no one but him. Whether it was because he was too overconfident, or because he underestimated the rules, I didn't know. Perhaps because I was silent for too long. He sighed as if making a compromise. Fine, I'll do my best to hurry back that day. Saying that, he looked down to check the invitation. When a clear female voice called out, Baichen. Brother. Su Wanwan pounced into his arms like a bird. Gu Baichen instinctively caught her. Wait, I've already finished packing. He let go in a panic, as if just noticing me. He fiddled with the white jade bracelet and said, Sister, don't misunderstand, She wouldn't be that petty. Gu Baichen casually stuffed the invitation into his sleeve. He patted Su Wanwan's head and said, She knows I treat you like a sister. She wouldn't mind such small things. Su Wanwan's breath hitched. She forced a smile and said, I hope sister is indeed that generous. If it were me, I would definitely be jealous. Gu Baichen froze, his gaze falling on my calm face. Finally, a hint of unease appeared. It's getting late. I need to go back and prepare for the wedding day. He was startled and nodded quickly. Right, go back and prepare. Once you marry into the Gu family, I will definitely treat you well. I didn't bother to say anything more, and just left without hesitation. 4 days later, the Gu family's wedding procession arrived early. I thought Gu Huainan would choose a carriage. But I didn't know what method he used to actually mount a tall white horse. Through the swaying bead curtain of my phoenix crown, he smiled slightly at me. His warm, large hand held mine as he slowly led me out. I looked up and saw beads of sweat on his forehead. I knew it must not have been easy for him to stand up. I couldn't help but feel moved. First bow to heaven and earth, second bow to the parents. The matchmaker's voice grew louder and louder as I turned to perform the final bow. Shouting was heard from outside. Let me in. I am the groom. A figure burst inside. It was Gu Baichen, back from the suburbs with Su Wanwan. He looked quite disheveled. Seeing me in my wedding dress, Gu Baichen immediately cursed, Lin Xinwan, have you no shame? Just because I was a little late, you actually went and married just any man? Everyone looked at him with strange expressions, because everyone knew that today was the wedding ceremony for me and Gu Huainan. As Gu Huainan's nephew, he should have respectfully called me aunt. But perhaps he was too furious. Completely oblivious to the situation, his face was full of contempt. I'm telling you, I was late on purpose today to test you. I thought if you behaved, I'd let you marry into the Gu family. Uncle, it's one thing for her to be childish. But why are you going along with it? Lin Xinwan, what are you standing there for? Come here and help me change into my wedding robes. The hall fell into a dead silence. The guests looked at each other. And on the high seats, the matriarch's face turned livid. Her eyes were bloodshot. As she glared at Gu Baichen, she suddenly slammed the armrest of her chair and barked, You wretched boy, what nonsense are you talking? Today is your uncle's grand wedding day. This is no place for your madness. Someone, drag him out. Gu Baichen froze, his eyes full of disbelief. Uncle's wedding day? How is that possible? Clearly, it was supposed to be my wedding with Lin Xinwan. He was pinned down by several servants. Blood from his forehead trickling down his cheek, dripping onto his expensive robes, and blooming into startling red spots. He was dazed for a second, as if unable to believe what he was hearing. Those eyes that were always full of indifference were now filled with shock and disbelief, as they stared fixedly at the matriarch. Seeing that he was about to be dragged out, Gu Baichen suddenly began to struggle violently. He used all his strength to throw off the servants holding him. The force was so great that several servants stumbled back several steps. He pointed at me, his voice hoarse and filled with uncontrollable madness. Impossible, that's absolutely impossible. Lin Xinwan is clearly my wife. We were childhood sweethearts, and this marriage was arranged since childhood, when my parents were still alive. The whole capital already knew about this. How could she possibly marry my uncle? There must be a mistake. You all conspired together to lie to me. He stumbled toward the matriarch, his knees hitting the cold floor tiles hard, making a dull thud. The wound on his forehead reopened, blood gushing out again, and covering half his face, making him look pathetic and hideous. Grandmother, you love me the most. Tell them this marriage certificate is fake. It was Lin Xinhuan who shamelessly wanted to social climb, so she deliberately changed the certificate. Quickly, tell them to pull her away, and let me marry her. The matriarch was trembling with rage, her chest heaving violently, her finger shaking as she pointed at him. She took a deep breath, forcing down her anger, her voice cold as ice. Bastard, how much longer are you going to talk nonsense? You were the one who changed the marriage certificate yourself. Did you think I didn't know? For the sake of a maid, you treated your own marriage as a bet, and Xinhuan's reputation as a game. Now you barge in to make a scene at the wedding hall, disrespecting your own aunt. Do you have any ounce of a Gu descendant left in you? I changed it? Gu Beichen was stunned. Then, as if remembering something, his eyes flickered momentarily, but he still refused to admit it. Grandmother, you're wronging me. How could I do such a thing? It must be Lin Xinhuan. She didn't want to marry me, so she deliberately set me up. Hearing this, I spoke up coldly, my voice calm yet carrying an unquestionable power. How could there be any mistake? As my voice fell, Xiao Tao stepped forward carrying a red sandalwood tray. On the tray lay the marriage certificate with gold characters on a red background carefully wrapped in a layer of transparent silk. He respectfully presented the certificate before the crowd, displaying it for all the guests to see. On this marriage certificate, it clearly states the names of my lady and Master Gu Huainan. It bears the seal of the Gu family and the marriage certificate number personally bestowed by His Majesty. It cannot be faked, as everyone knows. The wedding invitations sent out by the Lin Manor these past few days also bore the names of the two of them. Any household with a bit of status in the capital received one. It is naturally impossible to have made a mistake. Gu Beichen, you deliberately altered the certificate, but delayed showing your face. Now that Huainan and I are performing the wedding ceremony, you barge in to make a scene. Exactly who is the one without shame? The answer is clear at a glance. Hearing this, the guests who came to witness the ceremony began to chime in as well. Murmurs of discussion rose and fell, surging toward Gu Beichen like a tide. That's right, that's right. A few days ago, my household did indeed receive the invitations for Miss Lin and Master Gu Huainan. It was written very clearly on them. How could it have been Gu Beichen? I received one too. And lately, as the Gu family prepared for the wedding, it was Master Gu Huainan himself who was busy with all the arrangements. He went to the silk shop personally to choose the fabric for the wedding robes. He went to the rouge shop personally to select the cosmetics for Miss Lin. Even the decorations for the bridal chamber were finalized by him after his personal inspection. If it wasn't for his own wife, who would be so dedicated? Exactly. Where has Gu Beichen been all these days? I heard he took that maid, Su Wanruan, out to the outskirts of the capital for hunting and recreation, ignoring even the wedding of his own fiancée. He didn't look like a groom in the slightest. And now he has the nerve to barge in and make a scene. It's truly a disgrace. In my opinion, Gu Beichen is just reaping what he sowed. Miss Lin waited for him for 7 years. Yet he broke his promises time and again. Now that Miss Lin is marrying someone else, he finally gets anxious. What was he doing earlier? Everyone spoke at once, their tones filled with contempt and mockery. Those words were like needles, stabbing deeply into Gu Beichen's heart. He had originally intended to control me, so he deliberately took Su Wanruan to the outskirts and purposely delayed his return until the auspicious hour, hoping to make me anxious and make me take the initiative to beg him. Little did he expect that because of this, he would become the target of everyone's condemnation. Over these years, everyone in the capital had seen his actions. In the beginning, some people spoke up for me, criticizing him for being cold and fickle, but as it happened more often, they saw through his true nature. Some thought his methods were clever, that he could keep a woman tightly under his thumb. But more people felt disdain for his actions, believing he didn't deserve to have a woman as devoted as Lin Xinhuan. Gu Beichen's face turned from red to white, changing like a color palette. It was hideous to the extreme. He clenched his fists tightly, his nails sinking deep into his palms, leaving several bloody marks, yet he still refused to give up. His gaze was fixed upon me, carrying a hint of pleading, a hint of resentment, and a hint of panic that he hadn't even noticed himself. He gritted his teeth and asked, Lin Xinhuan, are you really going to marry a cripple? Just because of a moment of impulse? He can't even stand up. He can't give you happiness. It's not too late to turn back now. As long as you say the word, I'll act as if none of this ever happened. We'll be just like before. I will marry you into my family and make you the legitimate Mrs. Gu. He paused, then added, you've only performed 2 bows with him. You haven't entered the bridal chamber yet. It's not official. It's still not too late to regret it. If you two really enter the bridal chamber, there will never be another chance to regret it. Think about it carefully. 7 years of feelings. Can you really just let go when you say you'll let go? I looked at him coldly, without a single ripple in my eyes, only instructing the servants nearby. Take him away. Don't delay the auspicious time. The last trace of color drained from Gu Beichen's face. His lips trembled as if he wanted to say something, but he couldn't utter a single word. Just at the moment the servants were about to drag him away again, he suddenly seemed to remember something. A flash of madness gleamed in his eyes. He violently broke free from the servant's grip and roared, "You can't marry him. My uncle is an impotent cripple. If you marry him, you will never have happiness in this life. You'll only be a widow in all but name, Lin Xinwan. Wake up." In the deathly silent wedding hall, there was a sudden, furious shout. The matriarch could no longer contain herself. She snatched up a celadon teacup from beside her and hurled it violently at Gu Baichen. The celadon teacup whistled through the air, striking Gu Baichen's temple with a heavy blow. It shattered with a crack, splattering shards all over him. Dark red blood slowly flowed down that sharp-featured face, staining his vision red. But Gu Baichen didn't raise a hand to wipe it. It was as if he couldn't feel the pain. He only stared fixedly at me, his eyes full of stubbornness and madness, saying word by word, "What I said is true. Uncle has been impotent ever since he was injured. This is an open secret within the Gu family." Everyone was just too embarrassed to say it out loud. "Marrying him is jumping into a pit of fire. I can't stand by and watch you ruin your whole life because of me." My heart skipped a beat. At this moment, I felt that Gu Baichen might really have gone mad. Since Gu Huainan was injured, he had been bedridden, relying on a wheelchair to move around the capital. Although there were occasional rumors about his impotence, they were merely rumors. No one dared to bring them into the open. After all, Gu Huainan was once the renowned god of war of the Great Qi, having rendered distinguished military service to the country. The Gu family was also a prominent clan. If such rumors were confirmed, it would not only ruin Gu Huainan's reputation, but also make the Gu family the laughingstock of the entire capital. But today, Gu Baichen, as Gu Huainan's biological nephew, had actually revealed this massive secret in front of all the guests. This was undoubtedly a slap to the Gu family's face and a slap to Gu Huainan's face, not to mention my own face. I was afraid that within half a day this news would spread throughout the capital. By then, it wouldn't just be Gu Huainan and the Gu family. Even I and the Lin Manor would become the talk of the town, subject to the pointing fingers of others. In the wedding hall, everyone was as quiet as cicadas in winter, not daring to speak, not even daring to take a loud breath. The guests looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock and the look of those watching a drama. Clearly, they hadn't expected this grand wedding to produce such a scandal. I took a deep breath, suppressing the anger and humiliation in my heart, and slowly walked up to Gu Baichen. A flicker of hope passed over his face, thinking I had been moved by his words, thinking I would regret it and leave with him. But in the next second, I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. The crisp slap sounded exceptionally ear-piercing. In the silent wedding hall, I didn't hold back at all with this slap. I used every ounce of my strength. On Gu Baichen's left cheek, clear finger marks immediately appeared. 5 bright red prints were deeply stamped into his skin, burning with pain. Gu Baichen's pupils contracted slightly, and he was completely stunned, looking at me in disbelief, as if he hadn't expected me to treat him this way. Clutching his face, his eyes were full of shock, anger, and grievance. His voice was hoarse. You slapped me? I slapped exactly you." My face was cold and my voice was filled with icy hatred. "How my husband is not for you to criticize. Who do you take my Lin family for? Who do you take me, Lin Xinwan, for? When the engagement was set, would we not have investigated such a matter? Since I dare to marry him, I have naturally already investigated everything clearly. Huainan is in good health. He is not the cripple you claim him to be. You are simply because you can't have me yourself, so you want to destroy someone else's happiness. Gu Baichen, you are truly despicable to the extreme." As soon as I finished speaking, the atmosphere in the wedding hall immediately livened up. The guests chimed in one after another. "That's right, Miss Lin is right. The Lin family is also a famous noble house in the capital. How could they not investigate their daughter's future husband? Gu Baichen has truly lost his mind. To stop this marriage, he actually said such slanderous words about his own uncle. In my view, these rumors are completely false. Master Gu Huainan was the god of war back then. What a majestic figure he was. Even if he was injured, it's impossible for him to be an impotent cripple. Gu Baichen must be spreading rumors on purpose. Gu Baichen's intentions are just too malicious. He doesn't want to marry Miss Lin himself, but he won't let anyone else marry her either. He's truly selfish." Gu Baichen was stunned by my words, immediately reacting to the implication behind them. Before the marriage of noble women in the capital, there was indeed a custom of sending trial marriage matrons to the groom's house to verify through certain means whether the man was capable of performing his duties. By saying this, I was hinting to everyone that I had already sent matrons to verify Gu Huainan's health, and that he was not as the rumors said. Only I knew that this marriage had come too hastily. I had no time at all, nor the inclination to send any trial marriage matrons. The reason I said this was simply to silence everyone, to protect Gu Huainan's reputation, and also to protect my own dignity. That slap seemed to have completely woken Gu Baichen up. He pursed his lips, his face pale, and was about to retort something, when a figure came running in, stumbling, pushing aside the servants holding Gu Baichen, then tightly hugging Gu Baichen. With a hint of tears in her voice, Brother Bachin. Are you alright? Don't scare me. The newcomer was Su Wanwan. She was wearing a pink dress. Her hair was a bit messy, and her face showed anxiety and concern, making her look quite pitiful. She raised her hand to gently wipe away the blood from Gu Bachin's lip. As her sleeve slid down, it revealed on her wrist that icy, snow-white jade bracelet. It was precisely the heirloom that Gu Bachin had taken back from me, to give to her. The matriarch's face changed immediately. She stared fixedly at the jade bracelet on Su Wanwan's wrist, her eyes full of shock and anger. That jade bracelet was an heirloom passed down through generations on the Gu family's maternal side. It could only be passed to the legitimate daughter-in-law of the Gu family. Gu Bachin's mother had married into the Gu family wearing this very bracelet. Now, this jade bracelet was actually being worn by a maid. This was undoubtedly a massive insult to the Gu family. She took a few steps towards Su Wanwan, grabbed her wrist, the force making Su Wanwan frown in pain. The matriarch demanded sharply, "Where did you get this bracelet? Who allowed you to wear this bracelet?" Su Wanwan's eyes darted around, and immediately put on a pitiful appearance. Her eyes were red, tears swirling in them. As she sobbed, "Grandmother, Brother Bachin lent this bracelet to me to wear temporarily. He said, let me wear it for fun for now, and return it to the Gu family later when a suitable person is found." Sister Xinwan, did you want to marry Master Gu? Simply because you were angry about this jade bracelet? I'll give it back to you. Please live well with Brother Bachin. I wish you both happiness. In just a few sentences, she first made the relationship between her and Gu Bachin sound ambiguous, hinting that Gu Bachin had feelings for her, and then turned the fundamental reason for my marriage to Gu Huainan into a trivial matter like a stolen bracelet, portraying herself as an innocent and kind victim, while I was made out to be a narrow-minded, impulsive woman. Sure enough, before she could take off the bracelet, Gu Bachin instead grabbed her hand, protecting her behind him, and said to the matriarch, "Grandmother, I gave this bracelet to Wanwan. Lin Xinwan has already made up her mind to marry uncle. She is no longer a daughter-in-law of our Gu family, so she naturally has no right to wear this bracelet anymore. Wanwan's kindness and understanding make her worthy of this bracelet." A look of delight flashed across Su Wanwan's face, a hint of triumph in her eyes, but when she met the matriarch's sharp gaze, she immediately lowered her head, pretending to be shy as she whispered, "Brother Bachin, don't say that. I'm just a maid. How could I be worthy of such a precious bracelet? If I say you are worthy, then you are." Gu Bachin's tone was firm. He then turned to give me one last look, his eyes full of resentment and hatred. "Lin Xinwan, I will wait for the day you regret this. I'd like to see how happy you can be marrying a cripple." With that, he took Su Wanwan and left without looking back, leaving behind a mess in the wedding hall and the whispering guests. I felt a bit of disdain in my heart, only watching his departing back with a cold sneer. What he didn't know was that my marriage to Gu Huainan was not a moment of impulse, but a carefully considered decision. I waited for him for 7 years, wasted 7 years of my youth, only to be met with betrayal and humiliation time and again. My heart had long since died for him. As for Gu Huainan, he is gentle and considerate, learned and humorous. He respects me and cherishes me. That is enough. Moreover, I also intend to seek justice for those 7 years of wasted youth, because Gu Huainan had difficulty moving. No one insisted on making toasts or teasing the newlyweds in the bridal chamber. After the simple ceremony, the guests gradually dispersed. I followed Gu Huainan back to the bridal chamber. The room was lit with a pair of large red candles. The candlelight flickered, casting a warm glow over the entire room. A faint scent of osmanthus permeated the air, fresh and pleasant, making one feel refreshed. Gu Huainan sat by the bed, carefully brushing aside the swaying beaded curtain on my phoenix crown. His movements were gentle. Fearing he might hurt me, the light from the red candles fell on his face, softening his originally sharp and cold features. His long eyelashes cast a faint shadow over his eyelids, looking exceptionally gentle. At this moment, I felt my heart beat a little faster. Subconsciously, I lowered my gaze to avoid his eyes, my cheeks heating up slightly. A soft chuckle reached my ears. His voice was deep and pleasant, carrying a hint of a smile. "It's late. My wife should rest." His slender fingers helped me remove the heavy headgear, each gold hairpin, each beaded flower. He placed them gently on the dressing table, making a crisp clinking sound. His fingertips would occasionally, unintentionally, touch my scalp, bringing a tingling sensation that made me shiver. I spoke up subconsciously, my voice a bit dry. Do you truly not?" Gu Huainan's fingers paused. He looked at me, a half-smile playing on his lips. He leaned closer to me, his warm breath brushing past my ear, carrying a faint scent of osmanthus. "In that case, why don't you verify it yourself?" Being so close, I realized his eyes were deep and black, like a bottomless lake, hiding countless stormy waves within. His gaze was too intense, making me a little overwhelmed. For a moment, I felt a bit of fear in my heart, and wanted to retreat, but before I could show any weakness, he gripped my wrist, applied a little force, and pushed me back into the layers of silk quilts. The gauze curtains swayed, blocking the light from outside, and obscuring the warming atmosphere between us. That night lasted until dawn, when he finally let me go, allowing me to fall into a deep sleep. Perhaps 7 years of tension had finally relaxed, or perhaps the gentleness of the person beside me gave me peace. This sleep was exceptionally sweet. I didn't wake up until the sun was high in the sky. When I woke, Xiao Tao came in with a blushing face, carrying toiletries. She carefully helped me up and said softly, "Miss. The master said he has already spoken with the matriarch. There's no need to go and serve tea today. He wants you to rest well." My cheeks turned red. Remembering everything from last night, I thought indignantly. Rumors truly are misleading. If I hadn't believed the rumors in the capital, I wouldn't have said such rude things yesterday. It was so embarrassing. After washing up, I slowly stepped out of the courtyard. But as soon as I pushed open the gate, I saw Su Wanwan kneeling straight on the bluestone floor by the entrance. Her face was as pale as paper, her lips were parched, and she looked extremely weak, as if she had suffered a great grievance. Upon closer inspection, her clothes were a bit messy, and her hair was disheveled, making her look particularly wretched. My heart sank. I knew her appearance boded nothing good. Sure enough, as soon as Su Wanwan saw me, she shuffled her knees, little by little, toward me. She tightly grabbed the hem of my dress, as if grabbing a life-saving straw, crying out, "Miss Lin, please go and see Brother Bachin. Last night, while you were in your bridal chamber, he stayed in his room drinking all night. He got dead drunk. He mistook me for you. He held me and cried all night, calling your name over and over, saying he regrets it, saying he shouldn't have treated you that way, begging for your forgiveness." She observed my expression secretly while crying. Seeing my lack of emotion, she continued, "Miss Lin, can you go back to Brother Bachin? He truly knows his mistake now. He will definitely treat you well in the future, and will never let you suffer the slightest grievance again. Please forgive him just this once, okay?" While she said this, she unintentionally tilted her face slightly, revealing mottled red marks on her neck. The marks varied in shade, clearly being imprints left during intimacy. Looking closely at her slightly open clothes, one could catch a glimpse of more skin at the collar. Her collarbones, and even her chest were covered in similar red marks. It seemed that last night's drunken Gubachin did more than just hold her. As for her coming here today, I'm afraid it wasn't out of a sincere desire for me to return to Gubachin, but rather to show off in front of me, using these marks on her body, to make me jealous, and make me regretful. I looked down at her, my gaze icy, without a hint of emotion. "Isn't this what you've always wanted? You were his personal maid for so long, staying by his side day and night. Wasn't it just to make him fall for you? To have him raise your status to a concubine or even marry you as his primary wife? Now that your wish is about to be granted, why bother coming to me with such pretense?" Su Wanwan's breath hitched, and the color drained even more from her face. She bit her lip, a flash of panic and resentment crossing her eyes. Yet she still feigned pity. "Miss Lin, I didn't mean it like that. My feelings for Brother Bachin are purely of respect. I have no other intentions. I just feel sorry for him. He is truly in so much pain." "Is that so?" I smiled slightly, my tone carrying a hint of mockery. "Instead of staring at me here, you should think about how to strike while the iron is hot to win Gubachin over. But unfortunately, even if you marry him, I am still your elder. I am his aunt. In the future, once you enter the Gu household, you will still have to pay your respects to me every day and properly call me Aunt. Don't you think that's quite interesting?" Su Wanwan's face became even more unsightly. Her hands at her sides were clenched so tightly that her knuckles turned white, yet she remained kneeling on the ground, clearly unwilling to give up. Just then, the sound of hurried footsteps approached, and a familiar voice called out in anxiety, "Wanwan, why are you here?" The newcomer was none other than Gubachin. He was dressed in a moon-white brocade robe, his face still somewhat pale, with dark circles under his eyes. Evidently, he hadn't recovered from last night's drinking. As soon as he saw Su Wanwan kneeling, he immediately stepped forward, carefully helping her up, his eyes full of heartache. Just as he was about to turn and demand an explanation from me, he suddenly froze. His gaze landed directly on the side of my neck, where several suggestive kiss marks were visible, the marks Gu Huainan had left behind last night. As he kissed my neck repeatedly, they were bright in color, standing out strikingly against my fair skin. Gu Bachin's eyes were fixed on those intimate marks, his gaze as sharp as if he wanted to tear a piece of flesh from me, filled with jealousy and rage. His voice trembled, as he questioned me in disbelief. You slept with him? Lin Wan, how could you do this to me?" I looked directly into those eyes burning with fury, finding it incredibly ridiculous. His jealousy, his regret, and all these emotions were not because he loved me. I knew Gubachin too well. He never knew how to cherish what he had, only regretting it after losing it. He was only upset because the pet bird he once held in his palm, one he could summon or discard at will, had suddenly flown away, and was no longer under his control. He hated, simply because he felt that something belonging to him had been snatched away by someone else, causing him to lose face and dignity. "Gubachin, don't be so self-important. I looked at him coldly, my voice full of mockery. The day you intentionally wrote the wrong marriage contract and treated my marriage as a wager, discarding me like a worn-out shoe. You should have expected today. I, Lin Wan, am not an object. I am not something you can take when you want and throw away when you don't. Since you don't cherish me, someone else naturally will. My gaze fell upon Su Wanwan, and I said with a half-smile. It seems you and this maid of yours had a good time last night. I intentionally emphasized the word maid, to remind him of Su Wanwan's status, and to see her reaction. As expected, a flash of resentment and indignation crossed Su Wanwan's face. She pursed her lips, suppressing the hatred in her heart, and said pitifully, Brother Bachin was just drunk. He didn't do it on purpose. It was my fault for staying there. No need to explain, I smiled, my tone indifferent. Even though you say that, the household cannot disregard propriety. And let an innocent young girl follow you without any formal status. Today, I shall make the decision to have Gu Bachin take you as a concubine. It will give you a title. So you won't have suffered in vain. As soon as I finished speaking, Gu Bachin immediately protested, Are you crazy? Lin Wan, you actually want to force a woman on me? When did I ever say I wanted to take her as a concubine? His eyes were filled with indignation and anger. As if he didn't understand why I would want him to take a concubine. As if he felt Su Wanwan was unworthy of him. My heart darkened. Doing this was naturally to retaliate against him. Didn't he think Su Wanwan was so good? Wasn't he willing to give me up for her? Then I would make Su Wanwan his concubine. Making him face this maid every day. The one he once regarded as a precious treasure. Letting him taste the feeling of being entangled by someone he no longer likes. Unfortunately, he was too arrogant to understand my intentions at all, and Su Wanwan, even if she understood, would never remind him. Bachin. This is for your own good. I was just about to pressure him further, when a deep male voice spoke up. Gentle yet carrying an unquestionable authority. It was Gu Huainan. He was in a wheelchair, pushed by his personal guard. As he slowly came out from the courtyard, he was wearing a dark blue brocade robe. His face still bore a trace of paleness. But he seemed much more spirited. His gentle gaze landed on me, carrying a subtle hint of doting. Upon seeing Gu Huainan, a flash of fear crossed Gu Bachin's eyes. He, who was fuming just a moment ago, instantly reined in all his emotions. And bowed respectfully. Uncle. This person was openly challenging Gu Huainan yesterday, yet now he was as terrified as a mouse seeing a cat. I knew something must have happened between them. But I didn't care to investigate, simply turning my gaze to Gu Huainan, wanting to see how he would handle this. Gu Huainan smiled gently at me, then turned to look at Gu Bachin. His tone calm yet authoritative. She is your elder. Giving you that concubine is out of concern for you, her nephew. If you continue to be this disrespectful and ignore seniority, I will have someone bring in a governess to teach you proper manners. So you understand the order of elders and juniors. Gu Bachin was instantly silenced, not daring to say another word. He just lowered his head, his face turning various shades of blue and white. Seeing him behave, Gu Huainan continued, since you look down on this maid and are unwilling to take her as a concubine, then just give her a position as a bedchamber maid. The status of a bedchamber maid is much lower than a concubine. They aren't even considered true masters. On normal days, they not only serve the master, but also the main wife. Even the managing maids of the household can order them around, leaving them with no dignity whatsoever. Su Wanwan's face instantly turned paper white, completely devoid of color. She tightly grabbed Gu Bachin's sleeve, her eyes full of pleading, looking at Gu Bachin pitifully, hoping he could fight for a better status for her. Gu Bachin also hesitated. Although he liked Su Wanwan's gentle ways, he also looked down on her status as a maid, and didn't want her to be his concubine, fearing it would make him lose face. I looked at Su Wanwan's tear-filled eyes. Thinking of last night's tenderness, he felt a bit of reluctance again. Finally, as if he had made a decision, he gritted his teeth. I don't just want her as a maid. I want to make her a noble concubine. From now on, in the household, aside from my main wife, she shall have the highest status. While a noble concubine's status cannot match a main wife's, it is much higher than an ordinary concubine's. She would have her own courtyard, servants to wait on her, no need to serve others, and a certain degree of dignity and status. Hearing this, I was secretly delighted. Who in the capital didn't know Su Wanwan was cunning? Everyone knew about the wedding mass between me and Gu Bachin. Su Wanwan was no saint, and everyone knew Gu Bachin was a fool blinded by her. If Su Wanwan remained nameless, perhaps some who didn't know the truth among noble girls would still be willing to marry Gu Bachin. They could always find an excuse to sell her off later. But Gu Bachin was foolish enough to take a noble concubine before even marrying a wife, and a maid with a bad reputation at that. I'm afraid from now on, the noble girls of the capital will all avoid him like the plague. No one will ever be willing to marry him again. I was extremely satisfied with this outcome, so I smiled and nodded. Since you've decided this, then we shall do as you wish. However, the ceremony for taking a concubine needn't be too grand. A simple affair will do. After all, she's just a concubine. Being too extravagant would seem out of place. Gu Bachin glared at me fiercely, his eyes full of hatred. Yet he didn't dare to argue. Finally, he could only take Su Wanwan and leave in a huff. My gaze fell on Gu Huainan. Curious, I couldn't help asking. Where did you go today? Why did you come back so suddenly? After saying it, I felt a bit shy. Those words sounded somewhat like I was acting spoiled. Unlike my usual self. Gu Huainan was stunned for a moment, then smiled tenderly, his eyes full of doting. My wife has been troubled. I went to see the imperial physician today. To seek a way to treat my legs. I returned late and let you suffer. Do you feel unwell anywhere? I asked eagerly, my heart full of worry. I saw you riding a horse yesterday. Is it because of that your legs are hurting again? Seeing my concerned look, he was first surprised, then he smiled and shook his head. He reached out and gently held my hand. His palm was warm, carrying a reassuring strength. No, I only went to discuss the details of the treatment for my legs with the physician. In the past, I thought if I couldn't stand up, then so be it. I was used to it anyway. But since I married you, I have someone I want to protect. Naturally, I want to recover. So I can personally take you to see the world outside. And give you a complete home. So it was for me. I was moved. My eyes slightly reddening. While also feeling a bit of joy. His legs can actually be cured. To me, this was undoubtedly wonderful news. What did the physician say? Is there still hope for your legs? I asked cautiously, fearing a bad answer. There is hope, Gu Huainan nodded. His eyes full of determination. The physician said my legs only have nerve damage. Combined with the lack of movement over the years, that is why I cannot stand. As long as I persist with the treatment, along with acupuncture and medicine and proper exercise, there is a high chance of returning to normal. However, this process might be quite long. And quite painful. It's alright, I will stay with you. I said immediately. My tone firm. No matter how long it takes, no matter how painful it is, I will always be by your side, taking care of you until the day you recover. Gu Huainan looked at me, his eyes full of tenderness and emotion. He gently pinched my cheek. And smiled. With my wife by my side, I fear nothing. In the following days, I accompanied Gu Huainan every day to the imperial physicians for treatment. His treatment process was indeed as the physician described. Extremely painful. Countless silver needles were stuck into his legs. It hurt so much that his forehead was covered in cold sweat, yet he gritted his teeth and never made a sound. When drinking his medicine, it was incredibly bitter and hard to swallow, yet he would only frown and drink it in one gulp. I saw all this and kept it in my heart, but I could only silently wipe his sweat and prepare some candied fruit for him to relieve the bitterness in his mouth. Of course, while I was busy taking care of Gu Huainan, I didn't stay idle and let Gu Baichen and Su Wanwan live happily. During this time, I intentionally had the news of Gu Baichen taking Su Wanwan as a noble concubine widely publicized, letting the whole capital know. For a while, there was much discussion in the capital. Everyone mocked Gu Baichen's foolishness and Su Wanwan's wishful thinking. The families of those noble girls avoided Gu Baichen even more. Those who originally had some intention of an alliance with the Gu family all dropped the idea. After all, no prestigious family would want their daughter to marry a man who took a maid as a noble concubine first. This would not only make their daughter suffer, but also bring shame upon the entire family. This matter even reached the emperor and the empress. The emperor and empress had been a couple since youth, and had always been affectionate. They hated those who favored concubines over wives, and let maids climb the ranks. Considering it behavior that corrupted social morals, the empress immediately summoned the matriarch to the palace, and gave her a stern warning, reproaching her for lax discipline that allowed such a scandal in the Gu family. The matriarch was also a harsh person. After being warned by the empress, her resentment toward Gu Baichen and Su Wanwan deepened. Upon returning home, she immediately ordered Gu Baichen to be punished with 20 strokes. He was beaten until his skin was torn, and he fainted from the pain. Afterward, without waiting for his wounds to heal, she had him thrown directly into the ancestral hall, ordering him to kneel and reflect on his mistakes, not allowed to come out without her command. One must know, the matriarch usually doted on this grandson the most, unwilling to say even a harsh word to him. Now that she had taken such a heavy hand, it was clear she was truly enraged. Upon hearing this, Su Wanwan was so scared her legs went weak. She no longer dared to be as arrogant as before, and could only stay obediently in her small courtyard, not daring to come out and cause trouble. I thought to myself, so now she knows how to be afraid. On the third day of Gu Baichen's punishment, news suddenly came from the household that Su Wanwan was dead. It was said that after hearing of Gu Baichen's punishment, she feared she would be implicated, fearing the matriarch would take out her anger on her. So she packed some gold and silver valuables overnight, wanting to secretly take a boat and flee the capital, to find a place where no one knew her, and live a quiet life. But who would have thought? Her movements were quickly discovered by the Gu family servants. The servants hurriedly gave chase. In her desperation, Su Wanwan actually tried to jump into the river to escape, forgetting that she didn't know how to swim at all. As soon as she jumped in, she was swept away by the rapid current, eventually drowning in the river. Upon hearing the news, I only smiled slightly, not having much of a reaction. No one would care. Why Su Wanwan, who couldn't swim, would choose to flee by water? Nor would anyone care. why she was so desperate to flee the Gu family, even at the cost of jumping into the river. Some things were clear to everyone. Yet everyone chose to remain silent. After Gu Baichen learned of Su Wanwan's death, he made a scene and went mad in the ancestral hall, even wanting to rush out to demand justice for her. But the matriarch ordered him to be watched even more closely. In the end, he could only be helpless, only able to weep silently in the ancestral hall, mourning for Su Wanwan. As time passed, he seemed to slowly accept her death, and regained that seemingly carefree appearance. Only occasionally, while Gu Huainan and I were taking a walk in the garden, he would secretly hide under the corridor and watch me from afar. By then, it had been discovered that I was 3 months pregnant, though it wasn't yet obvious. My features had gained the gentleness and softness of a pregnant woman. His gaze would fall on me, carrying a mix of complex emotions, regret, resentment, and a hint of envy he hadn't even noticed himself. His gaze made me feel a bit annoyed, but I didn't care to pay him any mind. After all, to me now, he was nothing more than an irrelevant stranger. None of his emotions could affect me. Fortunately, he soon had no more time to bother me. Gu Baichen had wasted so many years, and his age in the capital was no longer young. The matriarch was eager to arrange a marriage for him, wanting him to settle down and start a career, to carry on the Gu family line. But for 10 families in a row who were of equal status and had daughters of the right age, she was politely rejected by them all, some even directly kicked the Gu family's matchmaker out, saying the Gu family's conduct was improper and Gu Baichen's character was poor, that their daughters would rather never marry than marry such a man. Gu Baichen's face was incredibly dark. His heart was full of anger and humiliation, yet he was helpless. In the end, the only family willing to talk about a marriage was a 6th-rank official in the capital. His family had a daughter, but she was simple-minded. From childhood to adulthood, she didn't understand basic human interaction, and had remained unmarried. That official, seeing the Gu family's influence, wanted to use this marriage to cling to the Gu family, so his own career could be smoother. Once the news spread, Gu Baichen became the laughingstock of the entire capital. His situation was even more miserable than mine when he repeatedly broke his promises to me back then. He finally couldn't take such humiliation and mockery and decided to pack his things and leave the capital to train in the military. He said he would make a name for himself in the military, making all those who looked down on him regret it. When the Gu family saw him off, I didn't go. Xiao Tao, seeing me sitting calmly by the window, sewing tiger head shoes for the baby, couldn't help but ask curiously, "Miss, I originally thought your revenge was to make Gu Baichen regret it later, to let him know how good you are, and make him live in the pain of losing you for the rest of his life. But now you've made him so miserable. It's a bit different from what I thought." I smiled, my needle and thread never stopping, my voice indifferent. "Silly girl, you think a woman's greatest revenge is to simply not love that man anymore, to make him regret it forever, and have him think of you for the rest of his life. But so what? He didn't love you then, and he humiliated you in every way possible. Do you really think people cherish what they've lost and that he would regret it for a lifetime? It's nothing more than a moment of false sentiment. Before long, he would forget you and start a new life." I paused for a moment and continued, "The revenge I want is for him to taste, bit by bit, the same bitterness I tasted, and the same suffering I endured. I want him to waste his years, just like I did back then, waiting from the prime of his youth until he is unwanted. I want him trapped in gossip and rumors, just like I was back then, mocked and pointed at by the entire capital. I also want him to be abandoned by everyone, isolated and helpless as I was, left with no choice but to be alone, silently bearing all the pain. Finally, I want him to find this capital unbearable, driven to a dead end as I was, forced to flee from this place that left him covered in scars. Only this can satisfy the hatred in my heart, and only then will he truly understand how much damage his actions back then inflicted upon me." Xiao Tao nodded half understandingly, saying no more, just quietly staying by my side. Gu Baichen's departure for the military did indeed come as a bit of a surprise to me. I didn't expect him to have such backbone, to be willing to lower himself to endure hardship in the military. However, I didn't pay much more attention to it. After all, his life had long since ceased to concern me. But perhaps it was a twist of fate. In less than half a month, news came of Gu Baichen's death. It was said he had been poisoned, and the person who poisoned him was actually Su Wanwan's former lover. No one had known that Su Wanwan had already had a sweetheart long ago. Her sweetheart was an ordinary scholar, from a poor family. Coveting wealth, Su Wanwan had abandoned him, pretending to be a girl in distress, and deliberately arranged to be saved by Gu Baichen. Then, step by step, she climbed up to become Gu Baichen's personal maid, hoping to use him to achieve a life of luxury. That scholar had always been pining for Su Wanwan, searching everywhere for her whereabouts. Finally, he learned she had become Gu Baichen's concubine, only to have suddenly drowned in the river. The scholar was grief-stricken, and believed that Gu Baichen had killed Su Wanwan. He began to secretly follow Gu Baichen, seeking revenge for her. On the day Gu Baichen set off for the military, he stayed at an inn along the way. It just so happened that the owner of that inn was the scholar. While they were chatting, Gu Baichen inadvertently mentioned Su Wanwan's death. He even mockingly sneered that Su Wanwan had overestimated herself, vainly trying to climb the social ladder only to end up as food for the fishes. The scholar, who had already been madly in love with Su Wanwan, heard Gu Baichen's words and was instantly enraged. The hatred in his heart could no longer be suppressed, so he put lethal poison in Gu Baichen's food. Gu Baichen was completely off guard. He ate the poisoned meal and quickly died from the poison. There in the inn. After this news broke, Gu Baichen's reputation became even worse. Everyone cursed him, saying he deserved it and that he got what he had coming. The matriarch was so angry she coughed up blood. She wouldn't even let him be buried in the ancestral tomb. In the end, his death was followed by him being wrapped in nothing but a straw mat and haphazardly buried in a mass grave outside the city without even a tombstone. When Xiao Tao told me all this, I was sunbathing in the courtyard. Gu Huainan sat by my side, peeling the preserved sour jujubes I had a craving for. I only smiled faintly upon hearing it, without much emotional turbulence. He had long since had nothing to do with me. Ultimately, it was his own doing. Gu Huainan looked at me, his eyes full of tenderness. He handed a peeled sour jujube to my lips and said softly, "It's all in the past. From now on, we will only get better and better." I nodded, opening my mouth to eat the sour jujube. The sweet and sour taste spread through my mouth, very much like my life now. Having experienced a bitter past, I have finally welcomed a sweet present. My gaze fell upon Gu Huainan. After these days of treatment, his legs had shown obvious improvement. Although he couldn't stand or walk for long yet, he could already take steps slowly with the help of a cane. He was still holding a small bag of preserved sour jujubes, all of which were things I had enjoyed eating lately. The sunlight spilled over him, plating him in a golden glow. That seemed exceptionally warm. I knew my life had already restarted. Those painful pasts and those unbearable memories had all become part of the past tense. From now on, I will live a good life with Gu Huainan, raise our child, watch his legs slowly recover, see the world outside together, and spend all the years to come together, never again letting anyone or anything affect our happiness.